Ozzy Osbourne finally reveals his devastating health struggle, and the truth is more heartbreaking than anyone expected. After years of rumors and silence, the Prince of Darkness opened up about the challenges that have been quietly taking a toll on his body and spirit. What he shared sheds new light on the man behind the legend, and it's a story no fan will want to miss. Ozzy Osbourne has always lived on the edge, pushing boundaries, defying expectations, and surviving what should have ended most people a dozen times over. But in recent years, he's found himself facing an enemy far more relentless than fame, addiction, or public scrutiny: his own body. And the battle hasn't been just physical. It's been emotional, spiritual, and deeply personal. The legendary rocker, once known for his explosive stage presence and wild antics, has been quietly fighting Parkinson's disease behind closed doors. While fans noticed a change in his appearance and movement, few understood the depth of what he was going through. It wasn't just the tremors or the stiffness. It was a constant, creeping awareness that his body was slowly betraying him, piece by piece, day by day. Living with Parkinson's is like being trapped inside a suit of armor that gets heavier every morning. Simple tasks become monumental. Energy disappears without warning. And perhaps worst of all, your mind stays sharp while your body refuses to cooperate. Ozzy, who once commanded crowds of tens of thousands, now found himself struggling to walk across a room without assistance. And yet, he never lost his sense of humor. Even in his darkest moments, he cracked jokes, grim ones, sure, but jokes all the same. Because if he didn't laugh, he admitted, he might just break down. But behind the jokes and sunglasses was a man coming to terms with a cruel reality. For someone who cheated death so many times, aging was never something he planned for. He was a survivor, a warrior, but this fight was different. There was no tour bus to outrun it, no stage adrenaline to mask the pain. This time, he was stuck in the front row of his own decline. Still, Ozzy wasn't ready to quit. He clung to the things that mattered most: his family, his music, and the loyal fans who followed him through decades of chaos. His wife, Sharon, remained his anchor, pushing him to stay active, to keep recording, and most importantly, to keep fighting. Together, they restructured their lives around his recovery. Physical therapy, rest, and mental support became the new routine. It wasn't glamorous, but it was survival. And while many celebrities retreat from the spotlight in times of hardship, Ozzy chose to be open, not because he wanted pity, but because he knew millions of others were suffering silently from the same disease. By showing his vulnerability, he gave him something to relate to, someone who understood the frustration, the fear, and the sense of loss. Ozzy Osbourne might no longer leap from speaker towers or bite the heads off bats, but he's still a fighter. He's just battling a new kind of demon now, one that doesn't come with pyrotechnics or screaming fans. And in many ways, this fight is the hardest of them all. But this wasn't the first blow he'd taken. In fact, the real downward spiral began with one unexpected moment, a simple, sudden fall that changed everything. It wasn't a drug relapse. It wasn't a tour injury. The moment that truly sent Ozzy Osbourne's health spiraling downward was something far more mundane. Something that could happen to anyone. He fell. Just a simple fall in the quiet of his own home. But for Ozzy, that ordinary slip turned into the moment everything began to truly unravel. He had already been dealing with the early stages of Parkinson's, along with the lingering effects of past surgeries and decades of physical abuse from years on stage. But in 2019, when he fell in the middle of the night, he did more than just bruise himself. The impact jarred loose metal rods and screws that had been placed in his body years earlier after a near-fatal ATV crash in 2003. That crash had shattered parts of his body, and now, the hardware keeping him together had been violently disturbed. The pain was instant, but worse than the pain was what came after: the realization that his body was no longer bouncing back. Recovery wasn't going to be a matter of weeks or even months. It was going to be a total life adjustment. He suddenly went from an aging rock star to a man grappling with chronic, debilitating pain every time he moved. Something as basic as sitting upright or standing became a challenge. Ozzy tried to maintain his sense of humor through it all. In interviews, he'd crack self-deprecating jokes about moving like a zombie or feeling like the Tin Man without oil. But behind those jokes was real suffering. The fall didn't just set off a chain reaction physically. It tore open his confidence, his rhythm, and his entire routine. He described feeling like he was locked inside a prison of his own body, trapped between the person he used to be and the limitations he now faced. What made it worse was the timing. Ozzy had been planning a triumphant return to the stage. A massive tour was already in motion. Tickets sold, dates booked. He was ready to prove that, even in his 70s, he could still blow the roof off arenas across the world. But after the fall, all of that came to a crashing halt. The tour was postponed, then canceled. Fans were disappointed. Ozzy was devastated. Doctors warned him that the surgery to fix the damage was risky. At his age, with his medical history, any procedure involving the spine could mean complications. But he didn't have a choice. He went under the knife, hoping that modern medicine could hold him together one more time. The recovery was brutal. Months of rehab, grueling physical therapy, and moments where he questioned whether he'd ever walk properly again. The fall wasn't just a physical injury. It was a psychological breaking point. It forced Ozzy to confront something he'd spent decades outrunning, his mortality. The man who had once seemed untouchable, indestructible even, was now having to relearn how to simply stand upright without collapsing. But this wouldn't be the last time his health and the world would throw him a devastating curveball. For someone like Ozzy Osbourne, the stage wasn't just a job. It was life. It was fuel, therapy, adrenaline, and identity all wrapped into one chaotic, electrifying experience. Every time he stood in front of a roaring crowd, he came alive in a way nothing else could match. But following the fall that wrecked his spine, that lifeline began to slip through his fingers, and nothing could have prepared him for how devastating that loss would be. After the injury in 2019, Ozzy remained determined. Even as he dealt with post-surgery pain and neurological symptoms creeping in from Parkinson's, his sights were still set on one goal: getting back on tour. He had already announced the No More Tours 2 Farewell Tour, a massive global event that fans believed might be their last chance to see the Prince of Darkness in action. He didn't want sympathy. He wanted to scream into a mic, feel the lights, and prove he wasn't done yet. But his body had other plans. Each time he tried to prepare, something went wrong. The pain flared up. The tremors worsened. His strength faded. Despite his mental resolve, the physical side kept falling short. It wasn't just disappointing. It was crushing. This wasn't a man letting go of the stage gracefully. This was a legend being dragged away from it, piece by piece, against his will. What hurt more than the pain itself was the sense of betrayal. Like his body was turning against the very spirit that had kept it alive all these years. And then came the reality no artist wants to face. He couldn't do it anymore. In early 2023, after multiple postponements and mounting pressure from promoters and fans, Ozzy officially announced that he was canceling the remainder of his tour. The decision was described as the hardest thing I've ever had to share, and you could feel the weight of it in his words. For him, it wasn't just a schedule change. It was a death knell to the life he knew. Thousands of fans expressed their support, but that didn't ease the internal heartbreak. He'd spent decades defining himself as a frontman of one of the most outrageous, influential acts in rock history. Without the stage, what was left? A man in pain. A man fighting not just a disease, but a creeping sense of irrelevance. And still, Ozzy didn't give up. Even if he couldn't perform live, he poured himself into what he could still control: his music. He continued working on new material, even recording collaborations with younger artists. He explored virtual performances. He experimented with what the future might look like offstage. Because while the spotlight may have dimmed, that fire inside him hadn't gone out completely. The comeback tour was over. The dream of one last wild ride across the globe had collapsed. But Ozzy Osbourne, the man behind the myth, wasn't finished just yet. He just had to find a new way to keep going. And not long after, the world would come to see just how far this battle would push him, and what he'd reveal next would leave fans in disbelief. For years, Ozzy Osbourne was known for his explosive outbursts, wild antics, and fearless attitude toward life. But when it came to his health, he kept a tight lid on the details. The public saw the struggles, the slowed movements, the canceled shows, but the real story stayed behind closed doors. That changed when Ozzy finally decided to speak out himself, breaking a silence that had left fans and media speculating wildly. When Ozzy spoke publicly about his health battle, it wasn't with a carefully crafted press release or a scripted statement. It was raw, honest, and surprisingly vulnerable. He didn't just confirm the Parkinson's diagnosis or mention his fall. He opened up about the emotional toll, the fear, and frustration that had haunted him every step of the way. For the first time, millions heard the real Ozzy, not the stage persona, not the shock rocker, but a man grappled with his own fragility. He described moments when he felt trapped inside his own body, unable to move freely or express himself. He talked about how the disease stole more than his mobility. It took pieces of his independence, his confidence, and sometimes his hope. Some days, it's like my mind is willing me forward, but my body just won't listen, he said. Those words resonated deeply with fans worldwide, many of whom faced similar battles in silence. What made the revelation even more powerful was Ozzy's refusal to play the victim. Despite everything, he insisted on owning his story, the good and the bad. He shared how the love and support from his family kept him going, especially from Sharon, who stood by him like a rock. He also talked about how music remained his anchor, a lifeline to the identity he refused to lose. His openness sparked a wave of empathy and respect, turning public perception from sympathy to admiration. Fans admired his courage in facing such a brutal disease head-on, without sugarcoating the pain or hiding behind fame. His story became a beacon for others living with Parkinson's or a chronic illness, proving that vulnerability can be a form of strength. But Ozzy's reveal was more than just personal catharsis. It was a call to awareness. By sharing his struggles, he helped shine a spotlight on Parkinson's, a disease many people don't understand fully. Suddenly, discussions about symptoms, treatments, and daily challenges went mainstream, opening doors for conversations that had long been avoided. Still, even as he spoke candidly, Ozzy hinted at a stubborn refusal to let his diagnosis define him completely. He made it clear he wasn't ready to fade quietly into retirement. "I'm not done yet," he said. "There's still music to make, stories to tell, and life to live on my terms." The announcement stunned the world, and for many, it was a turning point. From that moment, the conversation around Ozzy's health shifted from whispers and rumors to genuine understanding and support. But even with this newfound openness, the path ahead remained uncertain, and what came next would prove just how unpredictable Ozzy's journey truly was. Behind every public revelation lies a private story, and Ozzy Osbourne's health battle has been no exception. While fans saw the fall, the canceled tours, and the public statements, few knew the full extent of what was unfolding behind the scenes. What many don't realize is that Ozzy's struggle wasn't just physical. It was deeply personal, involving emotional highs and lows that tested him and his family in ways most could never imagine. Ozzy has often spoken about how much his wife Sharon means to him, not just as a partner, but as his anchor through storm after storm. Over the years, Sharon has been his manager, protector, and fiercest supporter. But this battle was something else entirely. As Ozzy's health worsened, Sharon found herself taking on new roles: caretaker, nurse, and emotional rock. Their dynamics shifted, and their love was tested by circumstances neither had chosen. But the strain wasn't just on Ozzy. The Osbourne family has been through countless ups and downs, from public scandals to personal tragedies, and this health crisis brought a fresh wave of challenges. Ozzy's children, too, found themselves stepping up, offering support in ways they hadn't before. It was a collective effort to keep Ozzy grounded, positive, and fighting. At times, the pressure was overwhelming. The pain and limitations affected Ozzy's mood and temperament, and there were moments of frustration, anger, and sadness that spilled over. Family members have described how they had to learn patience, understanding, and the delicate balance between pushing Ozzy to keep going and knowing when to let him rest. One of the toughest battles was coping with the unpredictable nature of Parkinson's disease and the lingering effects of his fall. Some days were better than others, but the uncertainty created a constant state of anxiety. Planning anything became a gamble. Was today going to be manageable, or would symptoms flare up unexpectedly? This volatility wasn't just exhausting, it was isolating. Despite the hardship, Ozzy and his family found strength in small victories. A successful therapy session, a moment of laughter, or even a day when Ozzy could walk without assistance became milestones worth celebrating. These moments reinforced their resilience and deepened their bond. Ozzy has also leaned on his faith and spirituality, finding comfort and belief during the darkest times. He's admitted that the journey has forced him to reflect on his life, his legacy, and what truly matters. It's shaped a new perspective, one grounded in gratitude for the love around him, even when the future feels uncertain. Through it all, the Osbourne family's unity has been a powerful testament to the human spirit. Their story goes beyond rock star drama. It's about unconditional love, unyielding support, and fighting together when the odds seem stacked against you. Ozzy's public fight might be headline news, but the real battle continues quietly at home. And in that space, away from cameras and flashing lights, the true story of strength and vulnerability unfolds every day. Even after everything he's endured, Ozzy Osbourne's story is far from over. The battles with his health have tested him in ways few could imagine. But beneath the pain and setbacks lies a fierce determination that refuses to be extinguished. For a man who has spent his life defying expectations, retirement isn't part of the plan. Not yet, anyway. Ozzy's recent openness about his health struggles has brought a new dimension to his legacy. He's no longer just a wild frontman of Black Sabbath or the Prince of Darkness who terrified crowds. He's also a symbol of resilience in the face of relentless adversity. His journey has inspired countless fans around the world, reminding them that even legends are human and that courage can shine through even the darkest moments. Looking forward, Ozzy is focused on what he can still achieve. Music remains his lifeblood. Despite the physical limitations, he's been working in the studio, collaborating with artists young and old, exploring new sounds, and telling stories that only he can tell. His voice might not hit the same notes as it once did, but the passion and authenticity remain intact. Technology has opened doors, too. Virtual performances, studio sessions streamed online, and digital projects have allowed Ozzy to connect with fans in innovative ways. Though he may not be able to tour the world like before, he's finding ways to stay in the spotlight without the physical toll of life on the road. But perhaps the most powerful part of Ozzy's legacy is his willingness to be vulnerable. His public acknowledgement of Parkinson's and his health struggles has helped reduce stigma around the disease and chronic illness more broadly. In doing so, he's given a voice to millions who face similar battles in silence, encouraging them to speak out, seek help, and hold on to hope. Family remains at the core of his motivation. Sharon, his children, and his grandchildren are constant reminders of what's worth fighting for. They're not just a support system. There is inspiration. Together, they face the unknown future with a mixture of cautious optimism and gritty determination. Of course, the road ahead won't be easy. Parkinson's is progressive, and the effects of his past injuries will require ongoing care and adaptation. But Ozzy has never been one to back down from a challenge. His story is a testament to reinvention, survival, and the power of fighting on your own terms. In the end, Ozzy Osbourne's health battle is more than just a tale of tragedy or decline. It's a complex story of strength, family, and the unbreakable spirit of a man who refuses to be defined by his struggles. He's still here, still fighting, and still making sure his voice is heard. And for fans around the world, that means the legend lives on. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives. Stay tuned.
I love this smell.